Who was the first Sith Lord that used Cortosis armor? And why did it require the full Jedi Council in order to finally bring him down? Greetings, students of the Force, and welcome to the Archives. The Cortosis armor used by Chimera and the Acolyte has caused a lot of conversation to be sparked about why the Sith didn't try this earlier, but in fact in Legends, one did, and with resounding success. This Sith Lord's name was Darth Dessalus, an obscure Sith Lord who lived about 120 years after the ending of the Great Galactic War. Dessalus was the one who was the first Sith to actually employ Cortosis in his own fighting style, and then created an entire army that was equipped with Cortosis armor and weaponry. He was so deadly at killing Jedi that apparently the entirety of the High Council at the time had to band together in order to finally stop him, doing so on the field of war. So join us today as we open a holocron and talk about the Sith that made the Jedi fear Cortosis. The year was 3522 BBY, and the man who would become known as Dessalus was a member of the Pau'an species from Utapau, and Dessalus began his life as many Sith Lords do, as a Jedi Master. Very little is known about his time as a Jedi, and we don't even know his true name, but we do at least know what drove him to the dark side. The Jedi Master was obsessed with battle. The thrill of lightsaber combat consumed him far more than any Jedi of this era. He had unfortunately been over 100 years too late to join in any kind of war against the Sith or other lightsaber-wielding foes, and the Jedi Master's lust for combat would go unsatiated for nearly the entirety of his life. We have gathered information and can deduce that he likely studied Form 7 lightsaber combat Juyo. Form 7 is all about allowing the emotions and excitement of the fight to build and to explode within you. Jedi can master this art with extreme difficulty through training and discretion, but Dessalus used the form because it satiated his desires. Either way, we do not know what began the study of his Sith lore in secret, as Dessalus became obsessed with their battle tactics. In doing so, the Jedi Master eventually fell to the dark side, too infatuated with how the Sith fought. As a result of all of this, the Jedi Council made the decision to expel him from the Jedi Order, sensing that he was long lost to them. To say the very least, this did not sit well with the Jedi Master, as he slowly transitioned into a full Sith Lord, taking upon him the name of Darth Dessalus with the intention to desolate the Jedi Order that had wronged him. But he wouldn't do so first without perfecting the way to get revenge. The Jedi Order was a formidable force of the galaxy, a group of fighters that had endured many wars with the Sith, and Dessalus knew this from his many studies. So, the Dark Lord spent years developing his own martial arts style, which employed the usage of large Cortosis shields, ones that covered a large portion of his body. Utilizing the lightsaber neutralizing property of Cortosis, Dessalus's martial art was all about creating openings and quickly countering with either the Force or with one's lightsaber. It was the perfect anti-Jedi style. After this, Dessalus went back to his homeworld of Utapau in order to build an army of his own kinsmen, creating a massive fighting force of Pau'an warriors. Dessalus trained them all with his new martial arts style, and equipped all of them with Cortosis shields and weaponry. This must have taken at least a decade in order to construct properly, considering how rare Cortosis actually is, and how difficult this process is of refining it. Finally though, Dessalus's army was ready, and he led a full campaign against the Jedi Order. Through surprise attacks, Dessalus used ambush tactics against the Jedi, and swept through several core worlds using this method. With each and every victory, Dessalus grew more and more bold and audacious, and for a very good reason. By the time his campaign was reaching its end, he had slaughtered over 2,000 Jedi with his army, and of course, Dessalus himself was an extremely powerful Sith Lord and fighter. Besides using his shield in tandem with a lightsaber, he was proficient in force combat as well. What we know of his abilities came from the simulation programmed in the training hall for the Jedi Order, which had his style programmed into it. The simulacrum shows that he had the ability to frequently release high destructive force repulses. Floating up in the air, he would gather darkside energy around him and suddenly combust outwards, unleashing a wave of pure force power which would shatter stone to pieces and fling his enemies away. The sheer brutality of the impact of the wave likely had the ability to shatter bones, and anyone within its immediate vicinity was instantly killed. By adding to this threat level though, Dessalus could also use the extremely rare red force lightning. If you do not know, red is considered to be the most potent variant of Force lightning, used only by a very few in the Star Wars mythos. It wasn't something that one could learn, but something a Force user had to be innately born with. It was debilitatingly painful, and according to sources, it had a chance of disrupting a target's connection to the Force. Dessalus actually seemed quite proficient with his lightning, and its capabilities as well, as he was able to resist another Sith Lord's lightning either through Terminus or by counteracting it with his own. And of course, this all goes without saying that he was a master of his own created martial art. Despite a shield being the main feature of his armor, he was a very aggressive fighter, rarely staying in one position, and often using his shield offensively. He would go as far as to employ uses of Force speed to create a dashing shield bash in order to catch his opponents completely off guard. Dessalus also supplemented his physical might by utilizing Force Rage, a Sith technique which greatly enhances their physical abilities by entering a dark side frenzy. It had the side effect of causing them to be weak for a short period afterwards, but during their rage, it was basically like a roided up version of Force Valor. With all of these techniques in mind, Darth Dessalus gave Starkiller a real challenge even though he was only fighting a simulation of the ancient Sith Lord. Much like Vader, it seems that Dessalus honed himself into the perfect Jedi killing machine of his era, militarizing all of Utapau to his cause, promising them that not only would they destroy the Jedi, but next would come the galaxy. In reality, Dessalus was so powerful that the entire Jedi Order had to come together on a master plan in order to defeat him. The Sith Lord was having so many victories that he became far too reckless and overconfident. Knowing this, the Jedi would set a trap for him on Yaga Minor, leaving a small fighting force behind, baiting Dessalus into making a tactically disadvantageous position. As soon as the Dark Lord attacked, a massive Jedi fleet exited hyperspace behind him, completely cutting off the Sith Lord's ability to retreat. Dessalus's army was overwhelmed by the pure number of Jedi that had been assembled here, and despite their Cortosis shields, they couldn't stand being outnumbered. And besides, the Jedi had also learned a critical secret. Cortosis was not as invincible as they had previously believed. Despite being able to neutralize lightsabers, the metal was incredibly brittle, and refining it only did so much to mitigate that. It was revealed that repeated strikes with the lightsaber would eventually break down Cortosis' shields. As for Dessalus himself, he went out in a blaze of glory, getting the battle he so desperately desired for so long. Allegedly, it required the full might of the Jedi Council to finally kill the Dark Lord. And as we saw from analyzing his abilities, it's no wonder why. It's very unlikely that any single Jedi of that era could have taken Dessalus alone. And besides, it is poetic that the High Council that inadvertently created Dessalus by banishing him would be the ones to finally defeat him. In the end, Dessalus left such an impact on the Jedi Order that they would program a simulation of him, one of the trials of skill for the upcoming Jedi Knights. And they even included the Cortosis shield that made the Dark Lord famous. This was to help teach future Jedi how to properly combat opponents using unconventional weaponry, neutralizing their own lightsabers. However, it seems as though the Jedi would unfortunately have to put the simulation of Dessalus on a shelf, because it soon became self-aware. Due to the Sith Lord's incredibly self-absorbed personality, the simulacrum became aware of his own death and existence as a droid. The droid began to crave battle again, and expressed a desire to take over the Sith mantle and the galaxy at large. And so, the droid would be turned off until one Galen Merrick found it while undergoing training under a Sith Lord himself, Darth Vader. While fighting with Galen Merrick, Dessalus's programming continuously bragged about how many people he had killed, and how it had taken the full Jedi Council to put him down. The Sith Lord admired Starkiller's power, but still believed himself to be superior. Good enough, in fact, to even replace Palpatine. But of course, Starkiller defeated the simulation and ended its life by toppling a giant statue on top of it, ending Dessalus and his memory once and for all. But anyway, my friends, this was the life and the legacy of Darth Dessalus, the Sith Lord that made the Jedi fear Cortosis. This Sith was actually quite successful in his mission. having killed a staggering number of Jedi during the conflict. Most of these smaller Sith that fly under the radar don't really have feats like this, which makes Decius really stand out. It's a shame that all that we know of him comes from fact files, as I believe that this would make an incredible comic or even a show one day. It is interesting how the Jedi would have been able to better defend themselves against Cortosis had the simulation of Decius not become self-aware. This goes to show that even when the Sith spirit is not present, Sith Lords are incredibly dangerous individuals. Just their mere programmed personality is enough to make them treacherous. But tell us, friends, did you wonder if any other Sith had used Cortosis before Chimere? And if you would like a full video all about Cortosis armor and its history, as well as why it isn't used very often, please let us know in the comments down below and we will produce a holocron all about it. Until next time, thank you guys so much for watching and joining us in the archives today for another holocron opening, and may the Force be with you.